let's actually get into a little bit of content here, a little bit of actual actual English rather than just my tips and tricks and ramblings. Okay, let's talk persuasive writing. So, the purpose of persuasive writing is to position audiences to endorse a particular viewpoint or opinion. And usually it's the viewpoint or opinion of the author, which is you. You are the speechwriter in this context. Key features of persuasive, it's using carefully chosen evidence to help position the audience. So language is chosen to sway opinion, and it will also often carry more emotion than information. And there is a series of adaptable techniques that can be used to strengthen the argument. So typically persuasive writing comes in the form of oral presentations. So you'll be doing a speech, but I know for some students you'll be sort of writing something instead, writing a script, maybe doing a video rather than a live presentation. There's definitely variation in how persuasive is used. Some techniques used in persuasive writing can be incorporated into different writing styles to enhance an author's thesis. Very interesting. Okay, this is a little snapshot from the QCEE syllabus. So the persuasive speech is, or persuasive spoken response is IA2 or internal assessment 2, worth 25% of your final grade. And it says this assessment focuses on the creation of a perspective through reasoned argument to persuade an audience. It is an open-ended task responding to representations of a contemporary social issue in the media within the previous year. While students may undertake some research in the production of this extended response, it is not the focus of this technique. There is no prescribed text list for this assessment instrument. Students may support their responses with multimodal elements, such as digital, appropriate to the context and audience. Very good. So, pretty straightforward. You need to come up with your own argument, your own perspective on a social issue that's occurred within media in the past 12 months. A little bit of research to help you, to guide you with your argument, but it's not a research task. It's more about the presentation and more about the writing. All right, a few little things in the specifications. Respond to a representation of a contemporary social issue in media texts. A persuasive argument of their own. It needs to be your own argument, which adds to the public dialogue. So you're not just repeating another argument that someone else has. It needs to feel as if it is wholly your own. So you're to choose a contentious issue that has appeared in the media. Issues of contemporary social relevance may be drawn from the broader topics of gender, power, race, religion, age, class, and sustainability. So there's lots there to be pulling from. And you need to present a contention or a thesis in relation to the chosen issue and develop an argument that reflects your particular perspective as the author and writer of this task and makes use of cultural assumptions, attitudes, values, and beliefs. So not only do you need to present your own perspective, but you need to demonstrate that you have a solid understanding of the cultural assumptions that shape and influence the way that an audience might respond to your perspective as well. Oh, yes, and employ and synthesize nuanced rhetorical and persuasive strategies to position an audience to accept the perspective constructed in the text. So you're using persuasive elements, you're using persuasive features in order to enhance your work, to make it stronger, and to also add to your performance, the spoken element of this task as well. Okay, so you guys might be familiar with those three words, this idea of ethos, pathos, and logos. Essentially, a whole bunch of years ago, thousands of years ago, a bunch of Greeks sat down and they decided that they were going to figure out how humans were persuaded, what made people change their mind or adopt a particular perspective. And this is kind of what they came up with. There are three different techniques or three different ways that a human might be persuaded to believe something is true. Ethos, pathos, and logos. And I love the formatting of ethos, how that turned out. Ethos. So ethos is all about appealing to morals, ethics, character, etc. Pathos is all about appealing to an audience's emotion, and logos is all about appealing to an audience's logic. So ethos really surrounds this idea of justice, this idea of right and wrong. Is it good and okay that something is considered this way or someone is depicted this way? Is it okay that we let this innocent group of people suffer? These are the kind of questions that you're asking with ethos. Now, everyone is sort of born with an internal compass, a moral compass. Everyone sort of has this idea of what is good and right. We basically know that hurting someone is not an okay thing to do. We don't really have to be taught that. I mean, a little bit, but it becomes pretty intrinsic to us as we get older. And so that's what you're appealing to with ethos, this idea of justice. With pathos, it's all about appealing to the audience's emotions. So humans are incredibly emotional creatures. This is why we like videos of baby animals so much. And so you're basically appealing to those emotions. So imagery is a really strong persuasive feature to be using when it comes to pathos. It's creating this really vivid picture of what the topic is that you're talking about, and basically getting the audience to examine that closely and to feel all of the emotions of it. So you want to appeal to things like fear, anger, concern, empathy, all of those sorts of emotions. And then finally, logos. And logos is all about logic. It's the data, it's the numbers, it's the statistics that surround this topic or idea. And it's really important to know that every single person will connect to these different techniques differently. I'm very much a pathos person. I respond to emotion the best. That's how you persuade me of something, just to give you a little peek behind the curtain. But in terms of my older brother, he is absolutely a logos person. He needs data, he needs statistics in order to be persuaded. So when you are writing a persuasive speech, you don't want to just have one example of this. You don't want to purely be writing in pathos or purely be writing in logos. You want to have a spread of each of these throughout your work. Now, I want you to, let's take a quick 5-minute break to do a little activity. I want you to, let's go timer, sorry. Make sure we're on track by keeping a timer. I want you to write an example of ethos, pathos, and logos for this topic. If you were to persuade someone that geese, the birds, like a goose, is more dangerous than a crocodile, how would you do so using these 3 techniques? So I've set a timer for 5 minutes. It's starting now. Have a think, have a go. How would you persuade someone that geese are more dangerous than crocodiles using ethos? How would you persuade someone that geese are more dangerous than crocodiles using pathos? And the same for logos. So have a go. I know that I've been talking at you for a while, so I'll give you an opportunity to have a write, to have a think for yourself. How might you go ahead and convince someone that this is the case using those different techniques? about a minute left. Jot down your last couple of ideas. Be creative, think outside the box. All right, 10 seconds. Punctuate those last couple of sentences and let's move on. A really crucial part of the structure of persuasive writing is the hook. Audiences don't have a lot of attention. They don't actually have very long attention spans. So it's really crucial that you grab their attention right at the beginning. If you can't get them in the first 20 seconds of something, then they're probably not going to pay attention to most of what you write afterwards or what you say afterwards. So it's really important that you grab them right from the beginning. You don't want to start with, "Good morning, everyone. My name is Maddie Pride." It's boring and it doesn't give the audience anything to latch onto. It doesn't make them curious. It doesn't make them want to know more. So instead, we want to let the topic speak for itself, and you can get to the introductions later. It's kind of like a teaser trailer. You might see them on TikTok or Instagram Reels or something. They're like 15, 30 seconds long, really short and sharp. They're engaging. They're typically quick. They go. This is what you kind of want to do in your hook. Shock is another thing that you can rely on. If you shock people with a really strong, emotionally charged anecdote or a really interesting or sort of shocking piece of data, then audiences will be hooked and they'll want to know more. An example hook might go something like this. A chain gang of workers march with pallid faces and gaunt figures to their stations. They are little more than bones, scarred skin stretched over empty stomachs. They are Apple slaves, and for decades we have been oblivious to their torture, but no longer. See, it's interesting. You want to know more. What are they talking about? What do you mean, Apple slaves? What does this mean for us? Why are you telling me this? So this is what you kind of want to achieve with the hook. It's all about getting people curious, all about getting them to want to know more. In the structure of your actual persuasive piece, you are not a poet, a tortured poet, lamenting a cursed existence, as fun as that may be. It is your job to, throughout your writing, convince your audience of a point. You're building on an argument, a thesis, a contention, in the same way you're doing that in an analytical piece of writing. If your writing is a mess of exaggerated thoughts, over-the-top prose, or a whole bunch of data and statistics that aren't really linked to anything, then people aren't going to be convinced of your argument. They're not going to be persuaded that it is true. They'll lose interest, or they'll question your sincerity. They'll question your allegiance to this idea in the first place. So it's good to employ a basic structure to keep yourself in check throughout. So that's your introduction, your body points, your body paragraphs, and your conclusion. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in your introduction, you have your hook, you have your introduction, you say, "Hello, my name is Maddie Pride. I'm so excited to be talking to you today." You have a thesis, you have your contention. What are you going to be arguing in your speech? And then you have a preview of your points. Firstly, I'm going to be discussing this. Secondly, I'm going to be discussing this. Thirdly, I'm going to be discussing this. Within your body paragraph, your body points, it's important that you're going to be employing each of the different types of ethos, pathos, and logos to be appealing to a wide an audience as possible. At the start of your paragraphs, you need to have a topic sentence. Firstly, I will be discussing blah, 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 and you go into your point. You argue a specific point within that paragraph. You're not arguing multiple things at the same time. You have one singular point that you're proving within your paragraph which links back to your umbrella argument, which is your thesis. And then in your conclusion, you have a call to action. So a call to action is basically saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, I understand that this issue is bleak, that it's depressing, but there's something that we can do about it. And it's your job as the speaker to convince the audience that they have a role in fixing this problem. So the best way to structure a call to action is to split the audience into different groups. You might have parents, you might have students, you might have corporate executives, you might have reporters, you might have grocery store suppliers. You break your audience down into different groups and you give each different group a particular role, a particular job that they can do to fix the problem. Now, you need to be aware of the what this group might be able to achieve. If you're talking to a bunch of students, they can't just hop on a plane and fly down to Canberra and protest outside of Parliament House. Instead, you need to think a little bit more realistically of what they might be able to achieve. So you might tell them that they can sign petitions or call their local members or share important information on Instagram and tell their friends about things. So just be mindful about what each group can achieve and tailor their call to action to them and the specific resources and skills that they might have. It's really important to be familiar with the classic tools that you might have, and the distinct tools that you can be using as persuasive techniques. So some of the most common ones are machine gunning, repetition, alliteration, rhetorical questions, including the audience, so saying, using inclusive language, we, us, together, we understand this is the case. Together we can make a difference. Really emotive language and anecdotes as well. It's really important that you use these techniques in moderation. You're not just slamming them out one after another, because as we mentioned earlier, if your writing is overly emotional, if it's really jam-packed with these kind of features, then the argument gets lost beneath all of them and we don't actually know what you're trying to persuade us of. So remember, as I said at the start of today, clarity over complexity. It's so important. Make sure that your argument is really clear, it's really distinct, it's really straightforward. Okay. Now, a lot of students come to me and say that they're really worried about doing live oral presentations. Public speaking is up there as one of the things that people fear the most, more than spiders. I believe more than heights as well, which is pretty insane because I feel like loads of people are scared of heights. But persuasive speaking and public speaking rather is something that can be grown and developed like any other skill. If you continue to practice and build on it, you will get better at it and the nerves will certainly ease as well. So this is a quick couple of pointers to help you on how to do well. If you have a good idea of the different techniques that you can be using, it allows you to feel a little bit more prepared and that can ease your nervousness as well. So when it comes to speaking, pause really is your best friend. Pausing for effect allows the reality of your point to sink in. It allows the audience to sit with it and really consider what it is that you are telling them. So putting emphasis on important points within your speech, important words that you feel like reflect your argument well, will also allow them to really clearly follow the line of argument throughout. Intonation is really important as well. There is nothing more boring than someone talking to you like this and saying, "Hello, my name is Maddie, and today I will be persuading you of this really important topic and point." I'm not really tempted to adhere to that particular point or that particular point of view. I'm not really interested in getting on board. So it's really important that you're changing your intonation, you're bringing your pitch up, you're bringing your volume up when it comes to important points, you're emphasizing things that matter. That will definitely help you create a more engaging speech. So give your hands something to do. It helps with the nerves as well. So when you are practicing for this speech, stand in front of a mirror and watch yourself as you present. So if you're doing signposting, if you're saying like, these are the different points that I'm talking about, you can count them off on your fingers. Firstly, I will be talking about this. Secondly, I will be talking about this. And finally, I will be talking about this. giving words more weight by marking them with your hands. I'm sure you've seen me do this a couple of times in the presentation so far. If something has emphasis, I will emphasize it like this. If you can focus on what your hands are doing, on doing particular gestures, then you're less likely to pace or sway. And I see so many students stand up and they sort of do like that awkward side of the dance floor at a wedding sway where you don't have a partner to dance with, but you really like that song, so you're just standing there and swaying like this. Or they'll like pick at their uniform or like at their tie or something like that. Instead, we want to give your hands something to do. Now, I know that many of you will practice with palm cards and you'll have them like this, so you feel like a hand is missing. If you have to have palm cards, you can still emphasize with your hands with palm cards. But I encourage you, if you can, to use a full script and some sort of podium, even like a music stand instead that you can have your speech on, and typically put it to the side over here. So you can be referring to it and looking at it, but you have both of your hands free. You're not worried about dropping the palm cards and them going everywhere or losing, not having them in the right order or something like that. So definitely try and use a script if you can. Go ahead and test your audience. There is often quite a big difference between delivering a speech to yourself, just practicing to yourself in a mirror, and actually saying the speech to a live audience. So collect some friends and family members and practice speaking in front of them, really making sure to test eye contact. This is something that teachers will really always look for, and you'll definitely be marked for maintaining eye contact as well. So be looking and having someone in the audience that you can look at and refer to. If you can, try and make eye contact with the teacher. That will definitely emphasize to them that you know what you're doing, that you're feeling cool, calm, and confident up there, even if you're not. And if it's a bit of a big step to go from just talking to yourself to talking to an audience, you can start off with pets. Let them know, they're not going to offer you any criticism or any feedback, so you can always start with them. The other thing with nerves is that sometimes you just got to fake it until you make it. Imagine you're in a different place or put on a bit of a character to get up there. A lot of my friends tell me that I have a very different public speaking voice to my normal conversational voice, and that's true because I am putting on almost a little bit of a character when I'm doing this part of my job. So if you use that technique, you can feel a little bit more confident speaking in front of people. And consider if you might have a similar technique to use. You're Obama, you're Oprah, you're someone who does this all the time. This is not concerning, this is not worrying. You've done it before. The other thing to remember is that everyone in the room with you is in the same boat. They all have to do persuasive speeches as well. They all have to stand up in front of you and do the exact same sort of task. So no one is particularly worrying about you. They're mostly worrying about themselves, I promise. And the teacher, they have also done this before. So there is no judgment there. Everyone is already in the exact same boat. Really important to remember. All right, we have blasted through the first sort of section of our session today. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 10-minute break. I have been talking at you for quite a while. It's now the time to have a little bit of a rest, recoup, go and refill your water bottle, grab a snack, find a comfier spot to sit down in, all of those sorts of things. This is also a great time to be making use of the live Q&A chat below because you won't be trying to absorb new content at the same time. So go ahead, head down there, ask your questions and concerns, and we will get back into creative writing in 10 minutes time. Okay, let's get back into it. Give the last little stretch before we return. We've got about an hour to go. You're doing great. I'm excited that I'm here with you guys right now. Okay. So, one thing that I wanted to mention before we go any further is that these slides will be available for download below this video as in the little resource tab, so you can have them, you can refer to them, you can use them for your study and your review later on. I don't feel like you need to be taking loads and loads of notes, but of course, if that's how you prefer to learn, then definitely go ahead and do that as well.